My favorite way to make half square triangles is to do the most I can at one time. And today I'm going to show you how to do 32 at once. You heard that right. We're going to do 32 half square triangles at one time. So I'm going to show you everything you need to know. I've got my fabric cut, layered together, and all you need for this is your fabric. You're going to need a straight edge ruler, your rotary cutter, and I like to use two different colors of erasable pens, fabric marking pens, whatever you have. You can use heat. This one's a heat erase. This one will just disappear on its own because we're going to mark sewing lines and we're going to mark cutting lines, and they're different, so I don't want you to get confused. If you don't have two different color marking pens, don't worry about it. It's okay. Just use one. You'll just have to remember which are which, and it's not hard to do at all, I promise. For this project, my half square triangles are going to be 3 inches finished, which means they'll be 3.5 inches unfinished. So I have cut this piece of fabric. I've got my two pieces laying right sides together. I've got my floral print and my solid that I'm using here. And this is cut 16 by 16. To get started, what you're going to want to do is divide this up into a grid. And we are going to mark every 4 inches going both directions. So across this way and then across this way. You can either start in the middle, you could start every 4 inches. Maybe that's what I'll do. So I'm just going to use my ruler and just draw a line. This ruler is really grippy. These Quilters Select, they've got a good grip on the back. They never really go anywhere once you set them down, which I like. I don't have to apply a lot of pressure on the ruler itself, but it will grab your fabric. So now we have 4 columns, and they're 4 inches apart from each other. Then we're going to turn our fabric around. We're going to do the same thing the other way. We have 16 4 by 4 inch squares. Now I'm going to take my other pen that's a different color, and I'm going to mark a big giant X in the center. And so I'm using my ruler to line it up in the middle of every square to keep our lines nice and straight. Now these are our sewing lines. We're going to do the same thing in the other corner. So we're starting with an X. Now we need to mark the other squares that we have open that have no markings in them. So we are going to go around. Basically, we're going to do kind of a circle around this X. So basically we just did an X and then a giant square around. So the purple marks are our sewing lines. And what we're going to do is we are going to sew, and you're going to use your line, your purple lines, as the center. And you're going to do 1/4 inch away from each side. So you're going to sew on both sides here, and then all the way around the square in the middle. I'm using a 1/4 inch presser foot. So I know that I can just line up the edge of my foot with the line. And as long as I sew nice and straight, my lines will be 1/4 inch away all the way around. we're just going to turn that around and come back down the other side. Now we're going to do that on this other line right through the middle. Now we have sewn all of our sew lines. We've sewn on both sides. Make sure that you've got everything done just as you should, because now we're going to cut this apart and I'm going to show you the magic of making 32 half square triangles all at once. Now what you want to do is you're going to cut these apart. And what I would do is I would start on the cut lines first. So the ones that have the stitching, we're going to cut those last. So we're going to start with the grid. And I'm just going to start in the middle. It doesn't really matter where you start. Now, when I'm generally cutting up half square triangles, I love to use a swivel mat like this one here that I have from Caterpillar, and I absolutely love it. However, it's not quite big enough because we're doing so many at once. So just be really careful because you want your fabric to not move. So just go slow, take your time, and if you bump your fabric and move anything, just line it back up. Go across the center grid. You just want to make sure everything is as straight as possible here. Try not to get my head in your shot, but I want to see and make sure I've got everything lined up. So now we have cut all of the grid lines, and now we're going to cut right through the sewing line. So cut on the purple line, not into your stitches. And again, just be careful to not move your fabric. If you have a longer ruler for that center piece, that is helpful so you don't have to move it while you're working, you know, but all right, we are done cutting and sewing, and now we have 32 half square triangles. I'm going to trim all of these down to 3.5 by 3.5, 32 of these guys, just like that. Isn't that amazing? Being able to do this many at once makes quilting with half square triangles even better. Like, I love using half square triangles, but sometimes, you know, I'm working on a king size quilt right now and I don't even know how many hundreds of half square triangles there are in this quilt. So being able to do this method makes it so much faster and so much easier. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, drop them below and I will do my best to answer those. Be sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming content we have for you.